So I carved this skull here several weeks ago out of styrofoam, and I used various dental burrs. I'm not going to show you the carving process because I mean basically this is all up to one's skill with their tools, their hand tools, and their shaping and razor blades and X-Acto knives and all whatnots. But this is what you would start out with, more or less solid piece of styrofoam. You can glue pieces of styrofoam together, but this right here is a lot of volume. I'm going to actually have to use quite a bit of aluminum, more aluminum than I'm going to normally use. But I'm going to make this my pommel for my new whip that I made. I decided to want it to go a bigger, gaudier route, and the only metal that is suitable for such a large piece, this is more like a racquetball size ball, racquetball size skull. The only suitable metal is aluminum because it would be so heavy in brass or bronze, and yeah, it would have to be hollow in order for it to be that. I mean, I want it to be a solid aluminum ball where I can drill a hole and tap it, maybe even put a bolt at the top, and then maybe even a spike at the top where I can screw on a spike. So let's get started. So as is before, I'm going to put it chin down, where I'm going to do not one but two vent holes so that I can have a pour spout, and then when it fills up there's an area for the air to go, and this will evaporate. This will be my vent hole, and the main spout will be centered on the back of the skull. So this will allow for a lot more air to be released from the cavity so that it can flow in. It'll help with the detail. So there is one of the holes, and what I did was I just shaped a dowel and I cut a hole into it, and it's all pressure fit, shoved in there like so. No need to glue. And there you go, the next one is done. I took a little bit more time shaping this one because this is where the metal is going in. That's the metal going out, so it doesn't matter, or that's air going out, so it doesn't matter. But if there's hot molten metal, you want this area as smooth as possible. It's not perfect, but it's not going to be perfect anyways. This is an organic shape. This is sand casting. It's not going to be extremely perfect. It's not as critical as lost wax casting is. So I am always going to expect cleanup on sand casting, but nevertheless, you do everything you possibly can to make it as clean as possible, and that is the metal spout going there, my pour spout going in. So all this will be vaporized instantaneously, dropping the metal down all the way down to the chin, filling it all the way up, filling in all those cavities, and coming out both top side and side. And just like before, I am stuffing the face, stuffing my face of the skull, so that when I turn it upside down, there is available sand that will flow into and pre-packed the areas that I want to come out and have the detail in between the jaw, under the teeth. No need for this is going to be exposed. I don't need to fill that in. Probably could, but I will just in case. But that is not really an undercut area because I can get my finger behind there and push it in from the top. Anything that I cannot get my finger or my fingers down, because I'm compressing with my fingers to get all of this filled in with sand, I'm going to pre-do while I have it. And as you can see, it's sticky type sand. It can't come out, and it'll fill in all those details that I want to fill in. I got my chin facing down. This is my play sand area. I'm going to just drizzle it and let it fill in. I'm going to drizzle it just a little bit. And then I will compact it when it's about an inch or too deep inside this little sauce pan. As you can see, I've completely covered the skull. And what I'm doing is I'm compacting it around the perimeter to push that sand towards the skull to get all the detail in. And it'll compress quite a bit because there's a lot of air mixed into the petrobond from it just being like sitting out and drying out, but it can be packed in really nicely. And see, what I'm doing now is I'm pushing down my spouts, being careful not to break them, but I don't want my spouts to fall off and accidentally get petrobond sand in the cavity that I carved out of the skull. And this is just my method with this particular shape, but it can completely depend. You may not even want to touch your vent holes or your spouts in general because it could be too delicate. But you don't really have to compress the sand. Some people even do foam casting with play sand, so it's just gravity fed and filed in. I just like to push it in just to make sure that it's secure and it's not going to collapse, because when the foam is gone, there's no support holding up those structures, so then things can fall into the molten metal. And this is going to be a lot of aluminum, so I don't want it to like float around inside the aluminum. So there you go. So there you go, guys. What you see is kind of like a crater area that I've created to make a wide target. So I have a target here where I'm going to flow. I mean, this is about 4 inches of a target area to pour my molten aluminum in. And what I'm going to attempt to do while I'm filming here is I'm going to attempt to rock this plug out, this pour spout plug out. And as you can see, I'm rolling it around and it's creating like loose sand on the edge and pushing it down and compressing it. But what I'm doing is I'm compressing around the edges of the pour spout and making it more stout and secure. And I can always go in there and just blow it out with my breath, but I'm also compacting the sand around the area, and I'm going to attempt to actually wiggle this out. It doesn't matter if, there we go. Alright, so a little bit of sand is falling in there, but not a big deal. What I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this thing on its side and blow it out with my breath. Just go and blow it out because it's loose down there. So I gotta put the phone down for that. Alright, that took about 15 seconds. And as you can see, there's tiny few bits of particles in there of the sand, but that is not that big of a deal. I just don't want any huge chunks. I also don't want any huge chunks falling off. So what I did while I had it on its side is I stuck my finger in there and compressed the pour spout even more. So not only do I have this 4-inch area, but I have a nice compressed funnel that is empty of styrofoam. So when it starts pouring in there, it's going to hit directly onto the skull and start filling that skull up, and then it will start flaming out here when I'm done. And technically I don't even have to have it to where that fills up and overflows. It may, just because I get overzealous, but I definitely want to make sure that I get all the aluminum in one shot, because if it doesn't, it'll only fill up halfway and you got a problem on your hands. Okay, so let's get the forge fired up.
I'm a true champion.
Now next for this project, I'm going to go to the Scotch-Brite belt, but I've gone from 36 grit to 80 grit, and then jumping from 80 to Scotch-Brite. Now I would not do that, ever do that with a knife, because by the time you start getting to Scotch-Brite, if you do that, you'll notice small scratches from the 36 grit belt that never got out. And with steel, it's different than it is with aluminum. Aluminum, I can bear down and literally go from rough surface to polished surface by force, by brute force, but it takes a lot. It takes a lot out of it. It puts a lot on strain on the belts, and I'm just doing this to go quickly and also to go efficiently with the organic, roughed up, aged, weathered look that I want this aluminum pommel to be. So this is my method for aluminum. It may not be the only method, but it's also not to be getting a mirror polished look as well. It's only going to be polished in certain areas, and the rest is going to remain coarse and weathered. Now that the Scotch-Brite belt is done, I'm going to go in and clean up the teeth with my burrs and bring it down from a bigger ball burr down to some skinnier burrs here, little needle burrs, maybe a drum, and get down to where I can refine the details and pick the nose, pick the eyeballs out and between the teeth. There we go. We got a little carried away with doing this stuff with the burrs, but I went with a skinnier one. I went with the tiny cone shaped one like that and got in and carved the teeth. And now I'm going into the eye area, the eye socket area, and smoothing this out right here. And I'll also do the bridge of the nose and finish it up from there. And there we go. I'm going to go back to the belt grinder or the linisher with the sand belt, the Scotch-Brite belt, and I'm going to hit these areas very carefully and smooth out the details, and then go to the polishing wheel for the final polish. And now on to the polishing wheel. I'm going to use the green Triple E on this. Alright, because it was gunking up so much on top of the surface, I went ahead and cleaned off the Triple E, or the Triple E residue that was building up on the skull surface. And now I'm going to go to the rouge on the rouge wheel and then clean it up from there. So there you go, guys. There is the aluminum casting. I'm going to do some more polishing on it. I mean, I was just kind of tired of polishing, but that's what you can get. And as you can see, I'm leaving pits and imperfections inside the aluminum to give it more character, and the areas where you can't get to. I like that cast, that sand cast look. So there you go. What I might do is also fill in areas with black paint or epoxy inside there to make it, to accentuate the darkness of the eyes and the darkness of the nose and in between the teeth. But not bad, and it weighs about, well, I don't know the weight yet. I can put it on the scale, but feels like it's about half a pound of aluminum. The entire bar was melted, but I didn't use 3/4 of that bar, or a quarter of that bar. I used about 3/4 of it. So it just goes to show you how much metal can, when it's melted, how much you need. Also, when I was pouring it, this seems to be a little dip in this area. That's another thing, that the reason why you actually do want to overflow the pour spout, because what happens is the metal, when it's hot, is expanded, and as it cools, it shrinks, and it can shrink into your piece. So it'll shrink from wherever the path of least resistance is, and it usually makes a funnel shape on the outside of where the pour spout is. So you overcompensate that by having the pour spout out. So you never just like have your piece sticking up out of the sand, unless you don't mind having an area where there's a cavity that could potentially form. So I'll let you guys know, and I'll do another video of my drilling. I mean, everybody knows how to drill and tap, but basically I'm going to drill out this area and tap the hole to where this becomes a screw, and I can screw it on and tighten it down. And then I'm going to do a countersunk area up here, maybe where I can you know, put a nut up here, so it's not only the teeth threaded onto the rod that's going through it, holding it, but not only aluminum teeth, but steel on top. Thank you guys for watching. Please do not forget to hit that subscribe button and subscribe to my channel for all these projects that I'm doing. And also, if you want to become one of my first Patreon, so I don't have anybody that's doing my Patreon account right now, but it's basically people that would love to support me. Hopefully my friends and family, people that know me personally, will begin it. It's my new endeavor to start some kind of Patreon income, and this allows for me to continue to do these videos and keep these things. Hopefully I'm going to be doing more than even just, I'm going to try and do like 2 videos a week in between my projects. I've been needing to get content on YouTube here, but I appreciate the support. I will appreciate anybody that wants to join in on my Patreon account, and I will have a link in the description. Thanks. See ya.
I'm a true champion.